Almost Park, Texas is one of those small, dreamy cities that you'd read about in a novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald. In Bexar County, Texas, and just a few miles north of downtown San Antonio, it's known for its tree-lined streets, historic mansions built in the 1920s, and affluence. Home to just around 2,500 people, it's not the type of place where you typically hear about serious crime. So when a beloved mother of 4 children, ages 5, 15, 18, and 21, suddenly goes missing from her stately mansion in October of 2024, after a loud argument with her husband, the neighbors took notice. Hi, I'm T, and this is Bed Crime Stories Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support my channel, please consider a membership. We have to travel back to Sunday, October 6th for this bed crime story. That's when 51-year-old Suzanne Clark Simpson, who worked as a real estate agent, her youngest child, a 5-year-old daughter, and her husband, 53-year-old Brad Simpson, a real estate developer, attend a private birthday party slated to last from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the exclusive dining club known as the Argyle on Patterson Avenue in Alamo Heights. But something happens during the party that triggers a nasty argument between the couple. Suzanne, Brad, and their daughter leave the Argyle around 8:30 p.m. A haunting final image shows Suzanne leaving in her black dress and her nude-colored platform pumps. Suzanne Clark Simpson will never have another photograph of herself taken. 10 minutes later, surveillance camera footage at the local Almost Park H-E-B grocery store shows Suzanne and her daughter at the store from 8:40 p.m. until 8:51 p.m., just 11 minutes. At 9:15 p.m., Suzanne calls a family friend and goes to that person's house. Around 9:16 p.m., Suzanne calls her mother to tell her that Brad got physical with her, hurt her arm and elbow, and has left her in pain. What's very strange is that at that same time, 9:16 p.m., someone in the Simpson family accesses the AT&T app and suspends Suzanne's phone. It seems likely that Brad Simpson did this, but why suspend Suzanne's cell phone? Is he trying to prevent her from making phone calls? Or does he know that in the near future, she will no longer be needing her phone? You can bet that this action will be part of the circumstantial evidence against Brad Simpson if the case goes to trial. But I'm getting ahead of the story. Eventually, Suzanne leaves her friend's house and heads home. I'm thinking she should have stayed at her friend's house, but sadly, we cannot rewind time. All is quiet until between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m., when the peaceful slumber of the Almost Park neighborhood is pierced by the sounds of a heated exchange between Suzanne and Brad. We know this because a neighbor from across the street who was trying to fall asleep heard the argument. He gets up and looks out his bedroom window. Outside, he sees Suzanne and Brad Simpson engaged in a physical tussle. It's obvious to the neighbor that Suzanne is trying to get away from Brad as he tries to pull her down. Suzanne seems desperate to run away from her husband, but Brad appears just as desperate not to let her go. The neighbor sees the couple heading on foot in a westbound direction. Concerned, the neighbor goes outside to investigate. Okay, that's one brave neighbor. There's absolutely no freaking chance of me leaving my house alone after seeing another couple argue like that. But I'm fairly certain I would have dialed 911. Now, a short time after heading outside, the neighbor hears 2 to 3 screams emanating from a brushy area east of his home. About an hour later, the neighbor sees Brad Simpson once again, but there's no sign of Suzanne. Brad starts his black GMC pickup truck and leaves the house. According to the neighbor, he hears and then sees Brad return alone 1 to 2 hours later. The neighbor, surprisingly, goes back to bed and does not dial 911. Sunday night turns into Monday morning, October 7th. Note that the last activity on Suzanne's cell phone is around 7:15 a.m. on Monday morning. The coordinates show that the phone is in a business parking lot in Olmos Park. However, it does not appear that Suzanne is in possession of her phone at this time. Again, she's nowhere in sight. Unbeknownst to Brad, a surveillance camera at the H-E-B grocery store that Suzanne visited the night before catches sight of his truck and his truck bed at approximately 12:33 a.m. early Monday morning. That would have been an hour or two after the neighbor heard those 3 screams. The truck bed at that time was clear of any cargo except for a large ice chest. FYI, I checked and the H-E-B grocery store in Olmos Park doesn't open until 9 a.m. But I wonder if patrons can somehow obtain bagged ice there when the store is closed. It would make sense when you consider the ice chest in the back of the truck. Fast forward to Monday morning at 7:53 a.m. That's when a surveillance camera at the school where Suzanne and Brad's 5-year-old daughter attends classes captures sight of Brad dropping their daughter off. Footage from the camera captures the sight of 2 white trash bags and the same large ice chest in the back of Brad's black GMC truck. By 9:15 a.m., Brad is at a Whataburger in Bourne and he orders food. Sounds like he's hungry after possibly being up all night. Bourne is 21 miles north of Olmos Park, which takes about 34 minutes to drive in light traffic. Another surveillance camera takes footage at this point. It shows 3 white trash bags now in Brad's truck bed, along with a large, heavy gray trash can and that same ominous large ice chest. Also in the truck bed now is a large, bulky item wrapped and secured in a blue tarp with a silver metal firewood rack placed on top of it, presumably to conceal and weigh down the tarp. Due to its shape and size, and the fact that it was secured by a rope, the tarp stands out to Lieutenant Hector Ruiz of the Olmos Park Police Department's Criminal Investigations Unit. Again, I'm getting ahead of the story, but he will later conclude that there was an unknown object concealed within that blue tarp. Now, around 10:53 a.m. on that same Monday morning, Brad Simpson is captured yet again on surveillance camera footage at a Home Depot in Bourne. He makes a cash purchase of 2 bags of cement, an orange Home Depot construction bucket with a lid, a box of heavy-duty trash bags, a Clorox bleach spray bottle, and insect repellent. Those are items that you never want to see someone purchasing after one of their family members goes missing. When will perpetrators realize that just because they pay with cash doesn't mean they won't be picked up on security cameras buying sus objects like this and then walking out the doors and into the parking lot? How many times have you seen footage like that on Dateline and 48 Hours? While in the Home Depot parking lot, Brad asks a man for directions to the nearest dump. After leaving the Home Depot parking lot, Brad, according to the police's arrest warrant, intentionally places his phone in lockdown mode. I'm assuming Brad doesn't want his phone mapping wherever he goes at this point. Why not? Does he need to take some secret cargo somewhere to bury it under concrete? At some point, Brad's truck is seen on camera footage leaving the dump in Bourne. He then drives to a gas station and buys 2 one-gallon jugs of water. I'm assuming he's thirsty. Surveillance footage captures the truck, and now the 3 white trash bags that were there earlier are no longer in the truck bed. However, the blue tarp, the metal firewood rack, and the trash can are still in the truck bed. The footage also shows that Brad has changed his shoes from sandals to cowboy boots. When in Texas, after he leaves the gas station, Brad heads westbound from Bourne, which is in Kendall County, to Bandera County. Brad's family just so happens to own land and a ranch out in Bandera County. At 1:41 p.m., a license plate reader captures Brad's truck heading back to Kendall County. But now the blue tarp is no longer visible in the bed of his truck. The fire rack is still there, but it's been repositioned. Something has been moved out of the truck bed, and whatever it was wrapped in that blue tarp. So at some point between, say, 11 a.m. and 1:41 p.m. on Monday, a 2.5-hour period, the blue tarp and its unknown contents were left somewhere. The question is, was that Suzanne in the blue tarp? As Brad is out driving around, he suddenly receives a phone call at 3 p.m. It's his daughter's school advising him that his daughter hasn't been picked up. Brad hightails it to the school and arrives around 3:30 p.m. I bet that this will sadly be one of that daughter's earliest memories. You're that age and your parent fails to pick you up on time. It can be really scary. I know because it happened to me. My grandfather, who had kidney disease, suddenly got a kidney for a transplant. My mom was supposed to take me to ballet, but she never showed up. I ended up walking home. It was only about 5 minutes away. I'll never forget how I felt standing outside that school. Back to Brad Simpson. At this point, the firewood rack is no longer visible in the truck bed. However, the trash can and that large ice chest are still there. At 4:10 p.m., we know from security camera footage that Brad Simpson drives to a car wash and he scours the inside of his truck. The video shows, quote, dried cement splashes, end quote, near the rear passenger compartment and bed of Brad's truck. Only the ice chest is still visible in the bed. Now, on the evening of the same day, Monday, October 7th, a friend of Suzanne's calls Brad to ask about Suzanne. I have to wonder if it was the same friend that Suzanne visited Sunday night after her argument with Brad. Note that by this point, Brad hasn't called the police and he hasn't dialed 911 to report Suzanne missing. In fact, it's Suzanne's friend who ends up calling the police at around 9:57 p.m. Approximately 3 minutes later, at 10 p.m., Brad finally picks up the phone and calls the police himself to report his wife missing. So that's just about 24 hours after the physical altercation Brad and Suzanne had outside their home. Brad actually leaves a message for the police, doesn't even speak to them one-on-one. To me, it sounds like he wasn't necessarily planning to alert the cops that his wife had disappeared. When Brad speaks to patrol officers that same night, Monday night, he tells them that he hasn't seen Suzanne since 11 p.m. Sunday night. He also claims that Suzanne lost her cell phone after her brief trip to the grocery store after the party. However, Almost Park detectives want to interview Brad a second time, so they meet up with him on Tuesday, October 8th at 9 a.m. Brad now tells the detectives that he last saw Suzanne on Monday at 6:30 a.m. as he was leaving to take their daughter to school. Brad describes peeking into a room in their house and seeing Suzanne asleep. Now, this completely contradicts what Brad told the patrol officers on Monday night. When the first person on their suspect list starts changing his stories, the cops start listening to Brad all the more closely. I'm sure their spidey alarms were ringing off the charts at this point. After the interview, Brad leaves and heads to his ranch in Bandera County. The cops later ask Brad to come back for some more of a chat. However, Brad fails to show up. Investigators then reach out to Brad's brother, Barton Simpson. That is kind of funny. It's Barton Simpson, not Bart Simpson. Dang. Barton tells them that Brad called him and apologized for all the problems he's caused. On that same Tuesday, Brad sends a text message to his longtime business associate, James Cotter. Brad writes, quote, "If you're in Bandera, can you haul ass and meet me at your house? I don't have much time." End quote. Cotter replies, quote, "I'll be there in 40 minutes." End quote. Writes back, "Okay, make sure and leave all that shit into the pump house, especially the GUN." Cotter responds, quote, "Get over here. I won't tell anyone. You're my brother." End quote. Okay, so now Brad's friend, Cotter, is involved in the case. It sounds like James Cotter is as shady as his so-called brother, Brad Simpson, allegedly. 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, the police interview the staff at the school where Suzanne and Brad's daughter attends classes. The child apparently told the staff that her parents were fighting on Sunday and that her dad DV'd her mom and took her mom's phone away. The child also states that her mother had a bruise on her elbow. By now, Suzanne has been missing all day Monday and well into Tuesday. Police release a missing persons flyer to news outlets. Friends and family begin showing up in the area to pass out flyers and to look for Suzanne. 9:50 p.m. on Tuesday night, the police speak to the neighbor who witnessed the physical tussle between the couple on Sunday night after the party. Obviously, what the neighbor tells the police about the fight and the 2 to 3 screams, followed by silence, sends up major red flags. Tuesday night turns into Wednesday morning. At 12:42 a.m., so very early Wednesday morning, the police obtain an arrest warrant for Brad Simpson. Charge him with family DV and unlawful restraint. About an hour later, at 1:30 a.m., the Texas Department of Public Safety, Will County Sheriff's Office, take Brad into custody near the 542 East mile marker on Interstate 10. When the cops arrest Brad, they notice that he doesn't appear surprised, nor does he seem concerned about Suzanne's welfare. Also notice alarming lacerations and bruises on Brad's arms and hands. He's booked into the Kendall County Jail after 4 a.m. Bond is later set at $2 million. Brad is a wealthy real estate developer, so $1 million isn't necessarily hard to come by. The police execute a search warrant at Brad and Suzanne's house on this Wednesday. Scene tape soon serpentines its way around their stately mansion. The street in front is closed to the public. During their search, the police observe an indentation on a wall at the bottom of the home's staircase. At 10 a.m., 2 of Suzanne's friends speak with KSAT. They tell the reporter what a wonderful person Suzanne is. She would never, ever leave her children willingly, never abandon them. Later, the police hold a press conference to announce Brad Simpson's arrest, long before the Texas Rangers execute a search warrant for Brad's ranch in Bandera County. Ominously, they locate a burn site with a burnt laptop and multiple cell phones, turn out to belong to Brad Simpson. Investigators later discover 2 chilling notes from one of Brad's cell phones that were created the day before his arrest. One of the notes is titled, "This Next Life." In one of the notes, Brad apologizes for DVing his wife once in August and again on October 6th. The police will later discover that Suzanne had told her personal banker in August that if she were to ever go missing, the authorities should look in a lake. So that would have been after the August DV incident. That location seems so specific. It makes me wonder if Brad ever threatened Suzanne with such a horrible fate, ending up in a lake. On Thursday, October 10th, the Texas Rangers search Brad's truck. Stains found inside of it test positive for blood. However, later, it is determined that the blood belongs to Brad. It's also on Thursday that a Simpson family member informs the cops that Brad owns multiple GUNSs, and the family member retrieves these items from a locked room in the Simpson home. And chillingly, that same locked room also contains several silencers. Incredibly scary. Do most owners of these objects also have silencers? That same morning, the police take down the crime scene tape from outside the Simpsons mansion, and they reopen East Almos Road. 8 a.m., a detective confirms that the investigators have completed their search of the home. Brad Simpson is taken to the Bexar County Jail after being transferred from Kendall County. Brad's mother then speaks to KSAT. She tells them that she's always admired Brad, that Brad is a good father, that she spoke to Suzanne after the party, and that Suzanne had said that Brad injured her elbow. The mother makes it sound like she believes that alcohol may have been involved in whatever happened to Suzanne. In some ways, it seems like Suzanne's mother is a deer in the headlights. This whole thing had to be so shocking to her at the time. Now, on Friday, October 11th, federal authorities place a hold on Brad Simpson. They want to keep him in custody. I'm assuming they were concerned that he could come up with the $2 million bond. The authorities searched the 33,000 mark off I-10 near Highway 87, which is about a mile from where Brad was arrested. The search lasts from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m., and the authorities don't say if they found anything. On Sunday, October 13th, a full week after Suzanne went missing, Brad's brother, Barton, releases a statement on social media. It reads, quote, "We are deeply grateful to the community and to everyone who has supported and continues to support the search. To all of you who have reached out with love and encouragement, please know that your support means the world to us. We will not stop until we find her." End quote. On Monday, the police search a landfill in southeast Bexar County. That search continues on Tuesday. At some point, the police also charge Brad Simpson for illegally owning a short-barreled GUN. For this charge, he faces up to 10 years in federal prison and a fine of $250,000. The search of the landfill continues into Wednesday. Meanwhile, Brad is refusing to cooperate. His brother Barton releases another statement which reads, quote, "Until Brad chooses to cooperate, we will continue to cooperate for him as we have from the very beginning of this heartbreaking ordeal. This is not how he was raised, and this is not who we are. Our parents instilled in us the values of honoring and protecting others, and they are truly remarkable people. The devastation this has caused to our family is overwhelming. Brad's refusal to cooperate is unacceptable. My sister and brother-in-law have stepped up to take care of the children, but the impact on our parents has been shattering. Our lives have been irreparably changed. We will not rest until we find Suzanne." End quote. The search at the landfill ends on Thursday, October 17th. Say they found no evidence connected to Suzanne at the site. Detectives refocused their search efforts on the wooded areas in and around Almost Park, where Suzanne lived with her family. On Monday, October 21st, Brad's longtime business associate, James Cotter, is charged with tampering with evidence with the intent to impair an investigation. He is also charged with possession of prohibited weapons. I'm sure James Cotter was regretting helping his buddy, or brother as he called him, Brad Simpson. When Suzanne's sister Teresa is interviewed by People magazine after Suzanne's disappearance, Teresa says that she knew from the moment she found out Suzanne had missed her hair appointment and failed to pick up her youngest child from kindergarten was horribly wrong and had happened to her, that Suzanne would never abandon her children. Teresa said she knew from the start that 1, there was no hope for Suzanne, and 2, Suzanne was deceased. People magazine quote, "Suzanne doesn't go missing." End quote. Tragically, there was nothing that Teresa could do when she found out, because she was at a hotel in Hong Kong when she received a message from Suzanne's eldest daughter, spoken to her sister, Suzanne. At that point, no one had heard from Suzanne for 16 hours. Can you imagine how terrified Suzanne's kids must have been? Again, they range in age from 5 to 15 to 18 to 21. Now, fast forward to November 7th. That's when the police charged Brad Simpson with the unaliving of Suzanne. Suzanne's remains still have not been found. The police have revealed, however, that Suzanne Clark Simpson's DNA was found on a reciprocating saw, which is a handheld machine-powered saw that achieves cutting action through a push and pull or back and forth motion of the blade. Fine thought, and I'm getting visions of Chad Daybell and or Alex Cox. The police have not said where they found the saw. Note that Brad Simpson pleaded the Fifth when asked about his wife's disappearance. Trial is scheduled for February 12th of 2025. Despite friends and family, the police, GPS, and search canines looking for Suzanne, she sadly has not been found. Children had to spend the winter holidays without their mother and without their dad. Now, unlike Chad Daybell's children, who all supported their father, despite the evidence that he participated in the unaliving of their mother, Suzanne's children, at least the 2 oldest kids, are so far supporting their mother and are not willing to communicate with their father at this time. Now, the youngest child is staying with family. It's unclear where the 3 older children are staying. On December 19th, the judge ruled that Brad Simpson could have limited contact with some of his kids, who court documents indicate witnessed her mother being harmed, will continue to have no contact with her dad. Her old son, however, will be allowed to exchange letters with his father, provided the letters are inspected. The son expressed a desire to communicate with his dad. Earlier, Simpson's 2 eldest children have chose not to engage in contact with Brad at this time, but they requested the option to do so when they feel ready. This is such a sad story. All I can say is pray for those kids. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories podcast. See you. Now like, share, and subscribe.